I see this kid. This some bitch has a full beard. Full beard. I'm like, who's the dude with the beard? And they're like, oh, that's George.
My beard was a little, yeah.
I was like, damn, man, that's a pretty sick beard for a 15-year-old. Like, hey, everybody, welcome back to the Move podcast. We're talking, it's a new year, right? It's 2024. Welcome to 24. As we started years ago, really with Johan's suggestion, because he just has a crystal ball and knows everything about cycling, including, 17-year-olds that nobody's ever heard of. He said, why don't we do an up-and-comers show? Like, yeah, that's a pretty good idea. We don't know who to talk about, but tell us who to talk about. And lo and behold, what are we, 4 years in? What, Johan, what's your percentage or hit percentage on picking these young riders? It has to be 70%.
Well, I don't know. I never calculated it, but it's not that difficult. I think the most important is to follow the sport. And, I still talk to a lot of people within the peloton. What's amazing actually is how over the years, especially the last 3-4 years, they start to scout juniors. Now they start to scout cadets, which are 15, 16-year-olds.
Wow.
So it's, they're getting younger and younger. And so the guys we're going to talk about today, a few of them will surprise people because of their really young age.
Great. Well, obviously joined by Johan Bruyneel. Also, look at it up there. This is a new, of course it is George. So there's no telling where George is, right? It's George. It could be anywhere, right? I know he just was in Aspen, big time and everybody. The week before that, down in Costa Rica, just chilling, pura vida, baby. So I don't know where George is, but George, great to have you.
Nice to see you guys. I'm actually in Greenville. I'm at our good friend Brody Glenn's office. I'm here for meetings with him today. So I stepped out and bar in his conference room. So yeah, here I am. I
tell you, that Brody is something. I mean, folks and kids, we're talking about up and comers. Any kids listen, if you forget bike racing, if you ever want to get really rich, here's what you do. You just build storage units. That's it. That's all you got to do. Just go throw up some storage units in some secondary cities in America. These sort of second tier cities, as they call them. And you know what? You pretty much just print money. It's a good deal. Also, JB, you're just down the street. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Hey, I'll add to, before we get into the show, one of the reasons I think it's the most anticipated show of the year, and things have changed, which we've talked about, is, these, like you said, these up and comers, Johan's identifying them at 17, 18, 19 years old, and they're getting the opportunity to win at the World Tour level at 20, 21. Mm-hmm. You go back 10 plus years. Right. If we were doing this, we wouldn't be hearing them winning races for 6 years at least. Yeah. But now they come right in and they're winning. It already happened at Tour Down Under. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we'll mention that.
It did. We will. Before we jump into the action, today's show brought to you by Zwift. All right, it said we're in the middle of indoor season, and our We Do Club is popping with over 1,500 members joining our weekly rides. We Do Wednesday, which is a casual cafe ride. Well, casual for most people, not so casual for some, and Suffer Sunday. That's truly for the suffer lovers. There's never been a better time to get started riding indoors with Zwift. Zwift's smart trainer, the Zwift Hub, is now a better value than ever. For $599, not only do you get a smart trainer with a pre-installed cassette of your choice, but you can also get free shipping when you enter the code ZWIFTHUB at checkout. There's more to do on Zwift than ever before. Join us for a We Do Wednesday or a Suffer Sunday. Head on over to Zwift.com to grab your Zwift Hub. And do not forget to use the code ZWIFTHUB for free shipping. Also today brought to you by Bicycle. That's Buycycle. Bicycle. Bicycle has evolved the way pre-owned bikes are bought and sold. We're a band of riders building a community who expect more from their bike marketplace. More security, more clarity, and more connection. Selling a bike has never been easier. Based on the bike brand, model, and condition, our algorithm suggests a selling price to help you move your bike quickly, and our template makes it easy to create a listing in less than 3 minutes. Sellers can opt in to receive a bike box and packaging materials sent directly to your door. Bicycle also manages logistics by supplying shipping labels, and we coordinate pickups at your address.
Something I'll add to this, Lance, that I've learned is if you sit on a bike, an old bike in your garage for too long, it becomes almost worthless. There's like this magic window, I think, of when you have a bike, you ride it maybe a few seasons, flip it while it still has value, and get into the newest, latest, greatest. It's a real art to it. But if you made the mistake I did and you're sitting on them for too long, you kind of lose out on that. So this totally makes sense.
Think about all the bikes that were sold during COVID. Guys and gals, if you're not really into it, feel it's dangerous, here's your place to flip that bike. Totally pre-owned, totally secondhand, but top-notch and top class. Head on over to bicycle.com. Enter the code WeDo24. That's WeDo24. That takes away the seller's fee when you're selling your bike. Again, that's bicycle.com, and the code is WeDo24. All right, let's talk about these up-and-comers. And, of course, Johan, I mean, you're just such a fucking Svengali when it comes to this. It's just crazy.
I thought you were going to. I thought you were going to say you're such a nerd.
Hey, JB, will you edit this out? Yeah, Johan, you are such a nerd when it comes to this. I tell you what's cool to see and is, you know, we're now starting to see, and we've already seen this the last few years. We're starting to see some kids of the guys that we raced with, right? And some, we've got some names on the list this year. But it's just, I don't know if it's cool or if it makes you feel old, but now we're starting, of course, we just, you know, just on this Zoom, you got a guy who surely in Enzo Hincapie in a couple of years is going to be on this list. But you know, it's, you know, your first name, I'll let you run with it, Johan, but you know, the son of a guy that we not just, you know, rode around and was pack filling the peloton. This was a guy we duked it out with.
Well, yeah, Igor Arrieta. So Igor Arrieta is a Spanish guy born in 2002. So he's 21, going to turn 22, but just signed with UAE. He was already a pro last year. I kind of wondered what happened to him. Apparently, he had a big injury last year and was out of circulation for a very long time. But now on UAE, not on the development team, but on the pro team. I've seen him do some things already in Mallorca, his first race with the pros last week. And I have to say, I was impressed with his power and the way he raced. He didn't win that stage, but you know, really put on a big performance. And from what I'm hearing, that guy's the real deal. You know, tall guy, only 64 kilos. So I mean, these guys are just all rounders. You know, he's really good on the climbs, but apparently also a really good time trialist. And his dad, Jose Luis Arrieta, was one of the gregarios in Banesto and in Caisse d'Epargne and in Movistar, and then later turned out to be a DS in Movistar. He's not anymore now, but yeah, I mean, the DNA is there, I guess.
Yeah. The next two I found interesting, Johan, just because, of course, all of us have followed the movements of some of these super teams. Obviously, Ineos created this wave. Jumbo Visma or whatever it is now, Lisa Bike sort of picked it up, UAE. And of course, one of those super teams and superpowers just a few years ago was Quick-Step. And, you know, we can't deny that things have evolved there, but our next two that you've singled out looks like Quick-Step got their mitts on.
Yeah, well, they do have a development team also now. I mean, let's not forget, they had a development team a long time ago. Alaphilippe comes from there. A bunch of guys that are on the team now come from their development team, which they stopped, I think, 3-4 years ago. But they do have the development team again since 2 years. And this first guy, the French guy, Paul Magnier, only 19 years old, born in 2004. A sprinter who impressed in the under 23 category, but also his first race in Mallorca, a bunch sprint, won it dominantly. Demar was there. There were some really good sprinters there, and he won it very dominantly. What I was really impressed about is that team. I heard an interview of one of the guys, and that was their plan. Before the stage, they already said, okay, today our leader is this 19-year-old new guy because we think he can win. And he did. He won. I was really impressed with him.
Yeah, and you saw, I mean, we all know as a 19-year-old kid, I mean, you get no freedom in the last 5 kilometers of a race like that, where you got the established guys like Demar and the other guys, I forget the names, but they clearly usually have the right of way. But this kid had no fear. I mean, elbows out, did not hit the brakes, had a great lead out from the third guy on your list, Luc Lamperi, that also is an incredible sprinter, comes to the United States like once or twice a year, wins the Criterium National Championships easily against some of the best sprinters here in the United States. And I know we haven't really hit him yet, but he took a sort of a different approach, raced in England for a couple of years on his own. So you can, to me, indicates that he's got a really strong head, doesn't mind being away from home, and is all in to become the best he can be. And I think the history that Soudal Quickstep has in producing some of the best sprinters in the world gives them a lot of advantage in getting these young guys, where they might not have to pay him as much money as the other teams, but they have a proven track record in producing the best sprinters in the world. And I think it's really enticing for guys like Paul and Luc Lamperi to go to that program and perhaps become the next Cavendish, or, some of these guys that we've been watching over the last 10 years.
I think it's pretty wild. I think it's really wild that you say they come in and, hey, you're working for this 19-year-old. So I'd love to hear from you guys. What's that like for the seasoned veterans on the team to hear that? And then also, what can this young 19-year-old do to win over the team? Yeah, well, gain their respect.
They knew already. I mean, I've read a quote from Patrick Lefevre saying on the training camp in the south of Spain, this guy Paul Magnier. They train everything, right? They train sprint trains, they train sprints, they train the time trials. Magnier was beating 4 times out of 5 Tim Merlier in the sprints on the training camp. So they all knew, that they were going to work for a guy who could deliver. And let's not blind ourselves on the results of those first races, right? I mean, they're short races. Mallorca is Mallorca. And 80% of the peloton is still there to train. But once they get in the final, it's real racing. And so these, I saw this interview of Lamperti before the stage, and he said, I really want to do good, but today we are working for Paul. I said, Paul who? Paul who? Until I saw the finish. I said, okay, I know who Paul is now.
Yeah, and Johan, that reminds me a lot of when Tom Bonin came through our first camp. Similar sort of situation, 19, 20-year-old kid, obviously super young. We were all there, veterans at the time, but came in with a ton of confidence and a ton of power to back it. And it's one of those things where okay, we can go into a race and confidently work for this kid, even though he doesn't have much of a track record in the pros, and he'll probably do very well.
All right, next up, an American, Luc Lamperi. George, you just touched on him. What's by the way, soft spot in my heart. Got a son named Luc, so go Luc Lamperi. What's his story?
George, what do you know about him?
Well, I've been following him for the last couple of years. I've heard he's very fast and raced in England, so took a sort of a different approach, as I mentioned earlier. Not afraid to be away from home, all in to become the best he can be, race for a team called Trinity. But he'd come back to the U.S. for the national championships every year and completely dominate the Criterium, which we know is not European road cycling, but still we have some very fast, specialized guys in Criteriums. And he would go there on his own and beat our best American crit riders. For being a road rider and not racing many Criteriums throughout the year is very impressive, in my opinion. And now we can see why Soudal Quickstep took him on and has put a lot of faith in his future.
Yeah.
Lefevre making moves.
Yeah.
Next up is a guy I really want to talk a little bit about. We already talked about him in our other show about Tour Down Under. The Mexican Isaac Del Toro. born in 2003. So still 20 years old. Tall guy, won the Tour de l'Avenir last year. We follow that closely because our good friend Matteo Riccitello was in the lead. And Del Toro beat him fair and square. There was nothing he could do. That guy, apparently, from what I hear, is the real deal. He's still, what we also need to look at from these guys is the young guys who's already super professional and have everything optimized in terms of training, nutrition, equipment, recovery, and the guys who are still have a big progression margin. And apparently Del Toro still has to learn a lot. So that's very promising. But the way he raced in Tour Down Under, he won stage 2. We talked about it in our show about Tour Down Under. I mean, that was impressive for a climber to attack in the last kilometer. You know, we don't see those attacks anymore nowadays. You know, it's the speeds are so high that once the sprint trains are going, it's impossible to attack like a guy like Ekimov did in the past, or Neidam, Jelle Neidam did in the past. This guy did.
Wait, you're going way back there, Johan.
But this guy did an Ekimov. This guy did an Ekimov, and he kept it until the finish. To be able to do that in your first race ever with the pros, I mean, that's impressive. And then on top of that, he finished third in the GC. So I think Isaac Del Toro is definitely a name to remember, and we're going to hear a lot of him in the future.
Well,
I agree, Johan.
Go ahead, George, and I'll wrap.
Lance and I have actually done that finish where he attacked with 1K to go. I'm sure Lance doesn't remember, but it's very, very difficult finish, gradual climb most of the way the last 4 or 5K. And in this race, particularly this year, I mean, it was so aggressive. You saw guys getting dropped. You saw guys attacking on the front. And for him to have the confidence to say, you know what, I'm just going to go from a K out, catch the breakaway and keep going and, not even look back for the most part. I was incredibly impressed with that attack.
The thing that stands out to me about Isaac Del Toro is everything that everybody just said is exactly right. And yes, that win at Tour Down Under was super impressive, but also just the timing of that move. I think that's, for a young rider, is hard to know. You're looking around and just there's that lull, and then it's time. It's that nose for the finish, right? That's you can't teach that, right? That's something that somebody has for whatever reason. But the thing here is, I mean, think about this, right? You have a kid from Mexico, which is our neighbor, is right here. We can literally, and we're going to go back 40 years, maybe in the entirety of the sport. You can name 2. I mean, we could poll everybody listening to the show, name 2 Mexican professional cyclists. I bet you they can only name 1. Right? So Raul Alcalá and Miguel Arroyo, right? And most people do not know Miguel Arroyo was a great rider. Rode with Le Mans and rode on some of those great teams. But this is not a place. Look, we're talking about France. We're talking about Italy. We're talking about Spain. We're even talking about America. Mexico, as great of a country as it is, I love Mexico. They do not produce professional cyclists. Mm-hmm. Like, to me, that's the crazy. Like, then I go, well, how did this kid find the bike? Like, what was it? And I think he grew up down on Baja. We looked this up after we were talking about him after Tour Down Under. He grew up down in Baja, but just like, what was his journey to just get into cycling?
Well, it's basically it's thanks to this private initiative, this club AR Monex Pro Cycling Team. Apparently, cycling as a structure in Mexico is all messed up. The federation is corrupt. I think they're even suspended. And so always problems, the young categories don't function. But this particular team, AR Monex Pro Cycling Team, they do an amazing job on the scouting, and they have a base in Italy. So Isaac Del Toro has spent at least 2 years racing in Italy before he moved now to UAE. So obviously that's where he learned the job, but still, you have to detect those guys. You have to find them. Somebody from the team has contacted me on Instagram because they're listening to the show. And they said, okay, this is just the first one of more to come. So wow. That's very promising for Mexican cycling.
Yeah, they were rabid on our comment section after the UAE tour. I mean, I'm sorry, Tour Down Under. They were just we have a big audience in Mexico. We have a big base there that are super pumped on this kid. So welcome to the show, all of you.
All right, before we get to the next batch here, today's show also brought to you by AG1. Taking care of your health isn't always easy, but it should be at least simple. That's why for the last 5 years, I've been drinking AG1 every day with no exceptions. If I'm at home, I use the big batch I have. If I'm on the road, I take the travel packs. It's very simple. It's just one scoop mixed in water once a day, every day, and it makes me feel energized, focused, nourished, and ready to take on the day. That's because each serving of AG1 delivers my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre and probiotics, and more. It's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. And as I've said a zillion times, and none of this is, by the way, none of this has changed. I am still terrible with, and I hope my mom's not listening, like fruits and vegetables. I don't know what's wrong with me, but you know what? I've got a hack. And that's it. It's AG1. If there's one product I had to recommend to elevate your health, it is AG1. If you want to take ownership of your health, start with AG1. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3 plus K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs, as I referenced earlier, with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/themove. That's drinkag1.com/themove. Also today brought to you by HVMN. Now, we often hear that fasting and exercise are good for the brain. HVMN launched the world's first drinkable ketone in 2017. Ketone IQ is their latest innovation on ketones with improved effectiveness, taste, and cost. Ketone IQ delivers clean fuel that can cross the blood-brain barrier, supplying your brain and body sustained energy, mental focus, and sharpness. By the way, I get questions about HVMN and Ketone IQ. I literally, and I know, George, you probably get the same. I get a question about it every single day. People are like, man, is that real? And I'm like, look, I think so. Just to give it a shot. It's been a game changer. Absolutely works. You can save 30% off your first subscription order of Ketone IQ at hvmn.com/themove. Again, that's hvmn.com/themove. It gets you 30% off. Last one of the day and a new one. We're going to have a little fun with this one. Today's show brought to you by Tushy. All right. Tushy has finally made the #2 cleanup more hygienic and better for the environment. You can now have a fresh stream of water, the same water as your sink or shower, to clean up your bum after every deuce. Here's the fun story about Tushy. Man, this is a true story. I'm a consumer and I was a customer of Tushy. I have a wife who for years, we've been together 15 years. She has been asking me for, I don't know what they make them, these $5,000 toilets. George, are you following me here? Or JB, we all have, special wives. Not to single you out, Johan, because you don't, but
been there.
But they want these really they're $5,000. And I said, listen, I can't, I grew up in Plano, all right, with no money. I'm not spending $5,000 on a toilet. And I swear to God, I was looking on the internet years ago and I see the Tushy and it does the same thing. And I'm like, all right, well, honey, I bought you one of those. I bought you one of those toilets. Now don't look at the label, but, and here's the deal. I suck at like building or installing or doing anything mechanical. I put it on myself. That is no joke. I mean, your ass is hot. You got the water. And I was like, this is amazing. Like I saved, thousands of dollars. Is everybody backing me up on this? I love this read. This is because I was a supporter of this brand. Anyways, for a limited time, our listeners can get 10% off their entire order at Hello Tushy, and that's TUSHY, hellotushy.com. Use the code WEDO for 10% off. It's some of these things on here I can't say, but listen, dudes, if y'all are like us and your wife's like, honey, I want one of those $5,000. You say, sure. And you get them a Tushy. HelloTushy.com. Use the code we do.
Before we run out of time, one guy I really want to talk about is another American. Remember his name, guys. AJ August. Signed for the big team Ineos Grenadiers, born in 2005.
Whoa.
So he's 18 years old. If you look at his physiology, he's a 1.70 m and 58 kilos. Looks to be a climber, but one guy who knows the under 23 category really well, Axel Merckx. He has this under 23 team which produces a lot of really big riders. Has said this guy is the same as Remco Evenepoel, but with more power.
Which
that's quite a statement. That is quite a statement. And until proven differently, I'm gonna believe him on this.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked a lot about Remco and the shoes that he has to fill. Now I'm just sort of sympathizing with AJ, but the shoes Remco has to fill in Belgium. But my God, no pressure.
Right.
You remind me of Remco, but you just have a lot more power, and you're 18 years old. I don't know.
And not only that, but it comes from a big cycling family. The mom rides, the dad rides. His brother is also a very good cyclist, older brother. Nice kid. I met him at Nationals this year. I've never heard anybody say anything bad about him, and I'm excited to see how strong he is. Apparently, even he was invited to the Ineos camp last year with other really strong U23 guys, and one guy in particular that lives here. He said they couldn't, when they would do zone 2 training, like none of the guys could ride with him because the zone 2 training was so much harder than their zone 2 training.
Wow.
Like he'd be dropping them in zone 2 training. So the guy's got some mythical stories already behind him. And it's going to be exciting to see how well he does. And like you said, multi-discipline, can race cyclocross.
Yeah.
I've seen
him win, George, 2 years ago. The first time I heard that name 2 years ago, this young American guy was part of the USA Cyclocross Academy. And there's a very famous cyclocross in Belgium on the Koppenberg.
Yeah.
So it's up and down the Koppenberg, and it's very, very hard. And he won that race as a junior, I guess. Like there was nobody else in the race. He was just dominating it. And I've been following him since. And now when I see that Ineos has signed him at such a young age, they obviously must have seen a huge potential.
Yeah.
With a quote like that, same as Remco, but more power, that is, I don't know if that's good or bad for him. But these kids, man, nowadays, they just, they're strong, they're confident, and they just go for it.
Lastly, from Rochester, New York, which, as we know, this time of year is not very easy for cycling. So it must have a very, tough physique as well for cycling, and can probably handle a lot of tough conditions, which, many of the young riders would struggle with early on in their careers. But I think he will not have any issues with the colder weather races.
And yeah, I'm gonna circle back on something with you, Lance, because over the 7 years we've been doing this show, I've heard you time and again start to touch on what you did a second ago, and that's you don't want to be billed as the next blank. Like that's a tremendous pressure to put on a kid, and they're coming over younger.
Right. Well, it feels like it. It's all up to the kid. I mean, there's a lot of kids that are immune to that. And I think we're talking about AJ, who's an American. I think if this develops the way we're, talking about, there will be pressure. American pressure is completely different than Belgian pressure, right? To be Remco, right, and for that country to be so starved. Obviously, they've had great success, but success in the Tour in yellow they haven't had. So that pressure, I mean, that's 1,000x, right? That's like saying, I mean, are you the next? This is the next Peyton Manning, or this is the next Gretzky, or this is the next Jordan. That's the equivalent, right? So we're still talking about cycling in America, which takes it down a tone. But at the end of the day, it's up to it sounds like he's got a great head on his shoulders. It's, some kids be like, yeah, okay, I saw that. I read about it. That's cool. Let's get to work. Others, might freak out. Time will tell.
Yeah, for me, it's for all of us on this panel, it's very exciting to have two Americans on Johan's up-and-comer list. Add to that our current block of Americans that are over in Europe racing the Pro Tours that are being very successful right now. So I think the future is bright for American cycling.
Johan, you want to knock out some other quicker honorable mentions here?
Yeah, well, there's two Norwegians, probably more, but those two on Visma Lease bike. We have to call it Visma Lease bike nowadays. The first one, which I think is going to be already performing really well this year, is Johannes Stone Mittet, Norwegian guy. He's 21 years old, all-rounder, already won professional races last year as an under-23 rider, won the Baby Giro very dominantly, won the Ronde Lizard, which is also a very high-level international climbing race. And above all, he's an all-rounder who can climb. And has a racing instinct. That guy will be performing already during this year. And then this apparently wonder kid, also born in 2005, Jørgen Nordhagen, Norwegian guy. Until last year, he was top level, like elite world cross-country skier, combining it with cycling.
Big engines.
Yeah, and he's been labeled as an anaerobic animal, like same as you say about AJ August. Apparently, this guy has an engine. Tiny guy. Basically, he's shifting from cross-country skiing because he's so tiny and light and the courses apparently are favoring the stronger guys nowadays. So he's going into cycling. I mean. I don't think he will be at the World Tour team yet. He's signing for the development team of Visma, but he's going to be up there. And then one last guy I want to mention also, but still a junior, also a Scandinavian, Danish guy, Albert Philipsen. He's signed up with Little Trek from 2025 on. They probably will use him or try him out already in some races. I mean, the advantage of today's cycling is...
Wait, hang on a second. He's a junior and he's going to race potentially in a World Tour event?
Next year.
They can. He's a junior still now, so in theory, he's staying with his junior team. But the World Tour teams who have development teams... they are able to use these riders in non-World Tour races and then put them back in the development teams. This is why certain teams, they have basically a pool of 40 riders they can choose from for non-World Tour races. So Albert Philipsen is the wonder boy, world champion on the road, world champion time trial, world champion mountain bike, European champion, Danish champion cyclocross. The guy can do it all. He's a junior, so we have to take into account, George, it because of Enzo, how far advanced is he already physically compared to his age range, right? Because at 16, 17, some guys are grown men and other guys are still underdeveloped. But
wait. I once knew a guy like that. Maybe go back to the OTC, like a roll up in 1989. I still hardly shave my face. I see this kid. This some bitch has a full beard. I'm like, who's the dude with the beard? And they're like, oh, that's George.
My beard was a little, yeah.
I was like, damn, man, that's a pretty sick beard for a 15-year-old. But
all right, so who was
real quick, going back to the Danish kid? How long is his? And this is a serious question. How long is his? How long did he sign with Little Trek?
Well, I don't know, but what you see nowadays, especially these young kids, they all sign minimum 3 years, 3 years or more.
With that resume and that hype, if I'm him, I'm just saying. You want to compete in the Grand Tours and you want to optimize the performance. There's only 3 teams to go to. Just saying.
Well, we'll see. We'll see what happens with Little Trek.
He's not one of them.
with the entrance of Lidl as a main sponsor, their budget has increased tremendously. You know,
it's all about the people. Money's money.
I agree. Okay. I agree. Okay. You know, there's better teams, but also, you know, I think some of these young guys are probably a little bit wary that they may get lost, you know, in those big teams. It has happened, you know. We've seen, for example, in Ineos or Sky, you know, when Sky was, you know, winning tour after tour, we've seen some young riders, big talents, who got lost and finally, you know, got burned out and never made it compared to what they were promising.
Not only that, when you have a guy like Mads Peterson, who's an established, you know, veteran on the team Lidl, perhaps he's, you know, talking to this kid saying, look, I'm going to be over here mentoring you and I got your back. And that's a huge deal for a young kid being courted by a lot of big teams, is to have somebody that you can trust and, you know, have faith in, that'll help you succeed in the future.
It's funny when I saw this guy winning the world road race in Glasgow, you know, a junior, straight after the finish, I saw one of the top agents go to him and he say, "Hey, you remember me?" 2 weeks later, it was announced that he signed with him. Wow. That he was representing him, and I mean that's where they have to look. But yeah, Albert Philipsen, big name to remember.
All right. Well, you heard it from the great's mouth, right? This is what Johan knows better than anybody. So, thanks for tuning in. But before we leave, JB, what do we get? We got some shows coming up. Just give us just take us on out.
Of course. We've got Cross Worlds we're going to be covering this coming weekend. And if you haven't been following the season of Cross, it has been the Vanderpool show for the most part, right? So we've got that just around the corner. But also, if you would like to join us for, you know, we do travel, Paris-Roubaix, an experience just like no other. Yeah. Getting to ride out there and everything.
We have 3 spots remaining. So there's only 3 spots left. It's an experience I would recommend. George, as our in-house Paris-Roubaix specialist, will be there riding with you guys. We also have the honor to have a 3-time winner of the race, Johan Bruyneel, with us the whole time for 3 days. So there will be a casual ride with George and Johan. They will give you some tips on how to ride the cobbles. The Gran Fondo is on Saturday. You can choose out of different distances. And then on Sunday, we have the VIP experience following the race, all private, you know, with George, with Johan, with myself. It's something that I will really, really recommend. You can find us on our webpage, wedo.team/travel.
I tell you, not to go back to this, but I mean, I've ridden little cobbles, not like Roubaix. I'm glad I never did it. Never want to do it. We need to send over some tushies. Get you some. How's your ass feel? Don't worry, we brought a bunch of tushies for everybody.
You did ride some Roubaix sections of the Tour de France. And you did great. So
never. I did because I had to, but never. Yeah. You know, never 5 stars, right? Never Ehrenberg. Those I don't. Anyways,
no, I think. It's a trip, George. I mean, back me up on this, but it's a trip you will never forget. You know what? Whatever you've seen on TV is nothing compared to seeing it in real life. You will not believe that the race goes over at those speeds. You will be able to, you know, witness it on Saturday by yourself. But yeah, three spots remaining. So first comers, first. How do you say that? First come, first serve.
First come, first serve. And there's no way you can properly describe how hard those cobblestones are. So if it's something that's on your list to try out, come ride with Johan and I and have a great time.
Cool. Nice. All right. Anything else, JB?
That is it. That's our housekeeping for now. Hey,
but thanks for tuning in. You guys write down these names. I was serious at the top of the show. I mean, we can go back and retroactively look at all the other years, but the man, Johan, the man knows what he's talking about. It'll be fun to see how all this develops and cool to see a couple of Americans up there. So thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys soon.
Oh.